6:17, I'd like to call this meeting of the Utility Committee to order. Kathy, could I have the roll, please?
Yes, Hicken,
Here.
Barstow,
Here.
Powell,
Here. Could we all rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank the members for making it here tonight. It was fairly quick notice, but as a result of the one real item that I think we're probably going to talk about more than any other, it has to do with the failure of the press at the water reclamation plant. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Cooey and Mr. King.
Right on. I can start. So on the agenda tonight is a resolution for an emergency purchase. I gave you guys the report that I made up here. Hopefully you had some time to read that. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. I did find one typo, but anyhow, so a little bit of history. You recall back in, I think even 16, we started, gave you the heads up that the phosphorus levels were coming. Then 17, we spent time doing an in-house study that was due to the EPA December 2017 of our technical and financial capability to meet a phosphorus discharge level of 1 milligrams per liter, which gave us an opportunity to evaluate our plant and see where we could improve. It was a Senate bill that was passed that all treatment plants rated or designed for that 1 MGD mark had to come into compliance with this, more than likely with the renewal of your next permit, and our next permit renewal cycle will be 2019. It'll end December 2019, going in 2020, we'll have a new permit, unless the director makes any changes. So throughout that process, we used everything and anything within our power to try and will the facility to get closer to that number. And, early on we knew that one of our side streams was an impact to us getting to that with the equipment that we have, and that was the press that we have at our facility now, the Yellow Prime rotary fan press. Early on we established that the filtrate and capture rate of that was not ideal. It's a 75% capture rate machine, which means that 25% of 25 gallons of everything we try and press goes right back through, so we're continually chasing our tail. So the performance of the machine has always been difficult. I would say in the past 4 years, maintenance of the machine has become increasingly difficult, with the first big failure happening right around Christmas of 2015, where we had a bearing failure, which we did an overhaul and worked with the supplier on everything we could on that to get it back up and running. We've had a couple other failures since then. In the process, as we've worked to get the most out of this unit, we had a lot of one-on-one interaction with the manufacturer. We've had them down on several occasions to try and, in my words at one time, telling them, assume that we know nothing and help us to get this machine to run as optimally as possible. We made some strides, but every time we would make a stride, something else would break. And most recently, would have been the 13th of July is when we suffered another bearing failure that basically the machine came to a sudden halt. And we basically tore into everything again and found several bearings that again broke, cracked, with no explanation on why. Other than this machine has reached its end of life. So the plan moving forward with the press, it was my intent to make this purchase and do some of the construction in 19, because this year we were doing a lot of our design work moving forward with how to address this, and upgrade the plant to eventually meet that phosphorus level, but the press had other thoughts. Now, I'll be advised, or I'll tell you that we did purchase some bearings to try and get this unit back together. I don't know, maybe spent $600 or $700 in bearings. But every time that we would go deeper into the gearbox, there was something else wrong. And the last one was, we found that the shaft was warped. If that's due to a bearing slapping into another concentric bearing, and just everything's off center, if you will. So then we consulted with the manufacturer and said, here's where we're at with this. What are our options? And the gearbox that we have on that unit now, it's a Sumitomo, it's made in Japan. It's no longer in production. So if we wanted to completely overhaul this press, Prime suggested it could be in the price range of $30,000 to $40,000, completely splitting the unit, new shafts, new gears, all this stuff, with the idea that it may work. Our unit that we have is a first generation unit. They've made a lot of changes since then, and somewhat obsolete, at least within our realm. Now, if the machine was pressing product wonderfully and giving us great filtrate, then I would say yes, there is cause to expend whatever dollars we have to extend the life of this machine. Knowing that we make this fix on a gearbox on a machine that does not work well with municipal sludge, in my opinion, would be a waste of effort and resources. So as we went through the study this year and in 17, you can see in the report that we set out to look at our options for dewatering. We demoed 5 units. 2 of the units we didn't ask for a price quote from with our study, because one was a belt press that I used in my time at Sunbury. That was not a good machine, but we wanted to see if there was any changes since then. And the other was Prime, the company that we're dealing with here. And given the limitations of this type of unit, I did not think it was appropriate for us to pursue any further. So then we did a trial, tested in-house with all those manufacturers, ended up getting quotes from three suppliers. One of them was similar to the unit that we have, a rotary fan press. I wanted to use that as a comparison against what we have of what a good rotary fan press may look like as it relates to filtrate. While that is a good machine, the price for the machine and the capacity of the machine puts us in no better footing than where we are now as far as production rate. I'll tell you this, my favorite unit out of all of them was the centrifuge. I think it was the highest price of the units, highest operating cost. Had 2 motors. Uses a lot of electric, well, not a lot, but it's a heavy electric user and uses polymer like any other compact unit. I have experience of those at my time at the city of Columbus. Now, mind you, Columbus had 8 of them, and they're very large units. But our maintenance protocol at Columbus was the interior cone section, the rotating assembly that does, if you will, like the vortex, wet sludge in one end, cake at the other. It's stainless steel, and like any rotating piece of equipment like that, it has a service life. And much like rotors on cars where you could take them and grind them down and reuse them, kind of the same philosophy with this. Eventually you get to a point where you can't machine these parts anymore. You have to buy another. So the mode of operation is so you don't go down, you always eventually, well, 2 or 3 years in, you buy another rotating assembly to have one. You could drop right back in when your other goes out. That's a cost of $100,000 per assembly. How many times you go through those, it depends on your usage and it depends on flow. To me, it seemed like it was something that well, it's a nice unit, a nice cake, nice production, but just something from a maintenance and ongoing capital expense, I did not think it was best for us. That brings us to the belt filter press. The unit that we did a trial with is a manufacturer BDP. It's repped by some folks out of Dayton, MSD. It's a 1 meter belt filter press. It's one of the most tried and true pieces of equipment on the market. It provided us with some great cake, great filtrate. One of the things that we were looking for on all the machines, which the 3 that we got prices for did great on filtrate. This method allows an avenue of reduced polymer usage. I want to throw that out because any compact units, including a centrifuge and rotary fan press like what we have and what Fournier quoted, in order for that machine for you to get the best cake out of the machine, you're going to use a lot of polymer. So to give you an idea, our polymer budget, and has been since we've had the unit, has been anywhere from $30,000 to $35,000 a year. We do spend every bit of that as we go through the year. One of the things with the belt filter press, with the study and what we've determined, our polymer cost should be below $10,000 a year. So in my mind, while belt filter presses are not the most, the sexiest unit on the market, they are the most trusted, and as it relates to ongoing maintenance. You know, you'll have things like replacing the actual belt surface. Depending upon usage, that could be a 3 to 5 year use out of the belt when it's time to replace that. If we would have to replace it on this type of unit, it's like a $1,900 purchase. The bearings on these type of units, they've got like a million hour type bearings, but anything mechanically can fail. They're in locations where they're easily replaceable, some of the control units. My point in saying that is the folks that we would buy this unit from, they stock all the parts in their shop in Dayton. So the ability to get aftermarket products for the next unit that we buy is key, and I guess long and the short, that's the unit that we're recommending. The purchase, and again, this is something that we anticipated in 19. We were hoping to limp the machine along as far as we possibly could. We're at a point of no return. So where we're at with the purchase and expediting the purchase is, if we could get confirmation on this or support to do this and place the order this week, we could have the unit as early as October, which is a pretty good turnaround because yes.
What are we gonna do between now and then?
Yes. So BDP, the folks, well, MSD, the folks we're gonna buy from, they have a 1/2 meter portable unit that we can borrow. Now, this unit can run about 50 gallons per minute. Our unit at best, what we have now, was like 35 and 40, so this will keep our head above water. So our plan is, if this is approved, we're going to get unique with some polymers at our plant and thicken every amount of sludge that we have over the next couple weeks, and just keep thickening and thickening, get the mobile press in here as early as September, and keep that baby around until ours shows up. In between now and then, if approved, we've got some in-house work to do in the current building. One being getting the old unit out and kind of preparing the room for the next unit, some piping work and electric drops, things like that, which are all listed in the report, and the PTI for the EPA. So we've got Job's kind of working on that to basically, well, get it drawing ready and say this is what we're putting in. The reason we have to do a PTI, even though we currently have a press, it's still a change in process. So we've gone from one type of unit to the other, so we still have to have that application process, pay our fee. I don't anticipate any issues with that as we, work through the process. But yes, that's where we're getting, we actually met with, the folks with MSD today, looking at our situation, if we use the polymer that we have on site and get creative. We've got another week before it gets bad, so that was part of it, making sure that we've got a good spot to park that trailer, get all the hookups ready to go, and confirm with them that we could have that pending approval of an order type of thing. And the importance of having this option, I guess crash course wastewater treatment is the biological processes mimic the human body. We take in carbohydrates, food source, we convert it to energy, and then we have a waste.
Create product.
We create product too. And just like the treatment plant, if it's not releasing product, it becomes unhealthy, or the product will release without control, for lack of better. So if we're not ahead of
myself.
that's right. And the treatment plant is on a healthy schedule, just like the rest of us. If we don't stay ahead of this, what's gonna happen is our effluent discharge levels will be impacted. We will be faced with some violations and things like that. So we're gonna do everything in our power and control to kind of roll with this situation that was not necessarily planned. If something would happen with the MSD press that we're gonna use, I do have somebody else in backup, but that'll cost us. Just to give you an idea, if we have to rent a press, we're looking at anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 a month until our unit shows up. So again, we're gonna be as creative as we possibly can. One of the options that is on the table, but's not on the table, would be liquid transporting. Just to give you an idea, if we got into that pinch, just ballparking why presses are important to squeeze out the water and concentrate the product as much as possible. Our daily waste rates would result anywhere from 6 to 7 liquid tankers leaving the property a day. At a rate anywhere from 5 to 8 cents per gallon, probably a little more if we take it to Columbus, which is a true place that we could actually probably count on 10 to 11 cents per gallon. But that's every day. There's no taking Saturday and Sunday off type of thing. So math in your head, what are we talking? $3,000 a day if we were tankering, and that's at a reduced rate, and that's if we don't get a lot of complaints from our neighbors. Semis rolling through the subdivision. So I know that's a lot, but I'm just trying to
No,
start the conversation.
I got a couple of questions.
Yes.
The first one is, do you anticipate any danger of purchasing a unit before you've got the PTO?
I do not, because part of our process is, this was part of our design scope and our plan. So instead of submitting not one big project, but one set of plans for PTI approval all at once, we're kind of breaking it up. So right now, we're just gonna focus on the press, which works out great, because my theory that some of our issues at the plant is due to our current unit. This now gives us a couple months, 3, 4, whatever, before we really have to consider any aeration improvements. And maybe that scope is tuned down a little bit as far as expense goes. And it gives us some time to see. Maybe we don't need to do an aeration improvement if the press works the way we think it should. But from that standpoint too, I put in a notice to the EPA today that, hey, this is down. We've done everything we can. We're moving with the idea of securing a piece of equipment in the meantime, doing whatever we have to do to prepare for this showing up in October. With that being said, if we get some drawings ready to go here in the next couple weeks, even within the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, knowing that this is what one would call an emergency, I don't expect any delays from the EPA, since they're really gonna look, does this machine meet our needs? If it didn't, we wouldn't get it type of thing. But some of those things like air exchange, making sure that we have everything accounted for.
One of the things you had talked about, you briefed this committee about and council about, was putting in a larger building to hold a different size
Yes.
press.
Yes.
Does the press you've chosen still necessitate that?
No.
So this would eliminate the need for the utility department
Yes.
to.
Yes. All the machines that we got price quotes on would fit in our current space. Now, doesn't mean we don't have to get creative. Like built this, they put the variable speed drives for the blowers, which in the next room over, in an area where the press is, which I guess it was probably okay since this is a confined unit. Our belt press is kind of open air. There will be times where you might get some mist or spray or whatever. So we got to relocate those into the other room. That's going to free up some space. So depending upon how we line up the machine, whether we go north and south, east or west, we're going to have maintenance clearance around the unit. It's going to be tight, but we're going to have enough clearance. Like usually the code is like 3 feet, 3 foot clearance. But since it's an operating unit, we're still even going to put handrails around the backside so nobody gets the idea to sneak around the machine for some silly reason.
How long should this unit last?
This unit, well, 20 to 30 years. So, and I forgot to bring it with me. There are four BDP units in the central Ohio area, well, somewhat central Ohio area. Pickerington has a unit that's been in service since 1997 with no major equipment, routine maintenance. Buckeye Lake, the wastewater plant for Buckeye Lake, and I have experience on that machine there. It's a newer machine. It's been there since like '04. And there's 2 other communities. I have to.
They like them?
Oh yeah. And they've got. He was telling me today they've got one that's been in since '87 too that they haven't had issues with.
Mr. Kemp?
Yeah, just compared to those other communities with us, what is the treatment capacity for them? I mean, are they treating more, pressing more, or less?
Oh,
less?
Pickerington, yes. Pickerington's closer to a 2 to 3 MGD a day plant. And I'm glad you brought that up too. So this unit that we're looking at, we've got an operation range between, we could go as low as 30 gallons per minute if we wanted to, up to 300. And when we had that unit here, we tested it, various sludges, various gallon per minute ranges. And just to give you an idea, even if we operated at the 100 gallon per minute range, we would be able to only have to press 2 days a week with our current waste cycle. Now we are running it every day, and sometimes around the clock to keep up a production schedule, just because.
Is that one of the reasons why it failed?
Well, I would say, I mean, if you look, we're approaching 15,000 hours on the machine. If you say they got it in 09, 8 years, and then you take that by the, average 220 working days a year type of thing, I mean, that's 7 to 8 hours a day that the machine was running. There were times we ran it around the clock because we had to, or the farmers, we were hauling sludge out and getting rid of everything possible. But it provides us flexibility for growth too. So the original plan when they upgraded this facility was to put 2 of these yellow units in that room to accommodate growth. With this machine here, giving our potential for growth and capacity for growth as a system as a whole, this is a machine that should last us through any upgrade cycle that we would ever have.
Refresh my memory on what you had budgeted for the building.
Well, so what we did is we reserved $500,000 this year and next year, cash funds, to do whatever we needed to do. So as far as me telling you what my budget for the building was, I can't tell you that now because we were going to use any building additions to also accommodate any aeration system updates that we might have to do. Trying to multi-purpose a building, but again, if this fixes it, I'm not gonna wager my paycheck, but I'm gonna say that 2 months from now, we're gonna be able to look at this and say, I don't think we need to go to the extent of aeration improvements that we thought. Maybe we can go with a different approach like surface mixers, just to give us a little extra on really hot days like this. But again, if we're capturing everything that we're pressing and we're not putting that load back onto the plant, I think we're okay. If you look at the design criteria based on the aeration equipment we have now, based on our loading averages, it should be fine. But I think this recycle stream that we're constantly chasing our tail is what's holding us back. So,
I'm looking at the clock and I don't wanna, bite into the next, to the hearing, but I also want to give Mr. Powell, I don't know if you have any questions.
I don't.
Mr. King, are you looking for a motion to support this from the county?
I would certainly like, out of this committee, to have a recommendation to support approval of the resolution this evening to purchase this press, and for that to be reported during committee reports.
And it just, it's a reference point too, it fits in the budget that we have, the 500,000 that was set aside this year, we've used some money on the engineering work. The purchase price of the press is $384,500, which I've got the quote here. This allows us some contingency funds to do things like move the electric, redo some plumbing, and just kind of make this building set up the way it should.
Is the air venting contained in that?
Yes, so what we need to do with that, the air handler that we have is sufficient. However, it's set up, it's one of those air exchange units that are based on temperature, and it'll, so our plan would be to take the press, and in the scenario where the press is running, that we have the exhaust system kick on, do its air exchange, press goes off, shuts down. Because if we're constantly exchanging air in there, they were talking about upgrading the heaters. Well, we only really need heat in that building when we're pressing on those really cold days. Like any other normal day, it's open, it's just better for the building. So that covers all stuff like that, miscellaneous parts, bits and pieces.
Well, with that said, looking at the clock, hopefully the committee has heard enough so that they feel comfortable making a recommendation, a motion to approve the resolution for the purchase of the new press. I'd entertain that motion if anybody wants to make it.
So moved.
Second.
I moved and seconded. Kathy, can I have a vote on that?
Barstow.
Yes.
Hicken.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
In the 40 seconds we have remaining, I don't really know that we have a lot to talk, I mean, first of all, we do have a lot to talk about.
Yes.
I'd like for this committee to hear all the CIP stuff. We've
Yes.
got 2 water pumps on
Yes.
tonight.
Yes.
Is there anything else that, it's gotta be
So,
fast?
fast as I can. One of them is for a well at Plant 2. Remember this time last year, we had the failure at that, which we thought was related to electrical. This one is given out on us, and it's that same old brand. So the other is a high service pump for water plant 1. The current pump needs maintenance. In order to do it, it has to be pulled. Since it's 12 years old now, we want to drop in a new one, and then the one that's being repaired, we keep as a backup for when the time comes. It's accommodating EPA recommendation. And just one more thing, really quick. Creek Road, I think I mentioned some of it, and I'll talk about it tonight. That project has done wonders for us. I wanted to let you know we're seeing pressure improvements. As of last week, Headley Mills Tower is back online, and guess what? They're
It's
working
drawing right.
together.
It's drawing
So
right.
they're exchanging and not fighting each other. We're absolutely thrilled with that idea because all our towers are in service and they're moving up and down. Believe that or not? So to be where we were 2 years ago, to be vexed about that, to see it working the way it should, it's awesome. So I'll hit on that later tonight.
I appreciate that. With that said, and looking at the clock, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Kathy?
Barstow.
Yes.
Hicken.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Bowie. Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.